Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming out today for this very special announcement and opportunity. We are here today on Clarksville's Pat Head Summitt Day. As all of you know, we proclaimed that at the City Council meeting last week to honor the legacy of our hometown hero, Pat Head Summitt. And to do that, we thought it was very appropriate on this day to announce that we are prepared to actually erect a statue of Pat Head Summitt with a special plaza that will be named in her honor right here in Liberty Park, which, as all of you know, is also the home to our other great hometown hero, Wilma Rudolph, who has the Wilma Rudolph Pavilion and statue and other mementos up the hill. So now we will have a park in the city that we believe will honor and be dedicated to two great legends of women's sports and two great people from Clarksville. So as we move forward today, we want to announce, and you can see the rendering, and this is just a preliminary rendering of what you will see. The statue, and we'll get more information from Richard Stevens, who is the chair of the very special committee that has been working on this for some time, has the statue ready to be cast, and it will be installed in the space right behind me here, as you see. We also have other indications of what will come later, which will be a wall that will identify Pat Head Summitt. We also intend to have information about her achievements, her career, and some of her life history, along with recognitions of the donors that have made this possible. And we want to say a special thanks to all of the donors thus far, and all of the donors that we know will come as we continue to move forward with this wonderful tribute to Pat Head Summitt, who, as you notice on the sign, has really inspired greatness from all of us. And I like to say, as a special tribute, you can see over here, along with the maquette, which you will hear more descriptions of by Richard Stevens, I have put some special mementos of mine, which are pictures of me and Pat Head Summitt's brother, Tommy Head, who served in the legislature with me when we were both there. And you can see there is a picture of Pat with my children, who at the time were very small children. Just to give you an idea, and I date myself and tell you how old I am, because my children, my son that I'm holding in my arms is starting law school this fall, and my daughter is in graduate school, so you can tell how old they are now. But that was after one of the national championships that Pat and her team, the Lady Vols, were successful in winning. And Tommy and I, who served together in the legislature, hosted Pat and the entire team at the Tennessee General Assembly with the governor in order to honor her and those achievements. So you can see, if we had pictures of every time Pat had come to the General Assembly, that table wouldn't be big enough for all of the pictures. That was the first, so that's why I wanted to show that one. So we really want to thank all of you for being here, but what we want to do is especially thank everyone who has been a part of this effort and part of this continuing effort to make sure that we have a tribute to Pat Head Summitt that is worthy of someone of her stature. And before I turn it over to Richard Stevens, I would like to acknowledge, I know we have some council members that are here with us today. I know we have Councilwoman Wanda Smith and Councilman Gino Grubbs and Councilman Bill Powers, who I think is also a member of the committee. So I'm sure he will be introduced by Richard Stevens as we move along. But I am just proud to say that the city of Clarksville is honored to be a part of this partnership to bring this tribute to Pat Head Summitt to all of the citizens of Clarksville and all of the citizens of Montgomery County and all of the citizens of our state and beyond once it is erected. So I want to say thank you to everybody at the City of Clarksville, especially those members of the Parks and Recreation Department Many of them are here with us today to acknowledge what they're going to do, and of course because they will be responsible for maintaining the entire Pat Head Summitt Plaza at Freedom Point, as it will be known from here on out. And so to acknowledge the donors and the contributions of the volunteer committee that has been working so hard to make this happen, I want to now introduce Richard Stevens.
Well, thanks, Mayor McMillan. It's been a great partnership. The city's been supportive of our efforts all along. And I brought with me a little show and tell. This ball that was signed by Coach Summitt during one of our AAU tournaments several years back. I was general manager at the Leaf Chronicle, and we were one of the sponsors of the AAU efforts. And so the sponsors got a signed ball, and this had a treasured spot in my office for years, and now it has a spot in my home office. But that'll be a memento that I treasure for a long time. I'm gonna sit it right there for now if it'll stay. It's the only ball I can palm. There you go, Charlie. Pass it around. I want to make sure I touch all the right bases here, but let me give you just a little background. We formed a committee about almost 4 years ago now, and I credit the inspiration and the idea to Jimmy Settle, business editor at the Leaf Chronicle. We were having a meeting one day, and we were looking for a project to get behind, something good for the community, and I tossed out the question to the assembled group, and Jimmy piped up and said, I think we need to do something to honor Pat Summitt. Jimmy has interviewed her many times, has sat and watched national championship games with her mom and dad back in the day, and has always had an affection and a unique understanding of the Head family and Pat Head Summitt's significance. So Jimmy said, yeah, we really need to do something. So I said, it was kind of one of those, why haven't we already done that as a community? So I started looking around for, the way I put it is for people who bled orange, a lot of the folks in town who are deeply related, committed, connected to the University of Tennessee, and then just some good, hard-working civic people. We got together as a committee and we started brainstorming. Brad Martin came aboard as our project architect and has been one of the key inspirations. He got a bunch of UT architect school graduates together and started brainstorming how we might do this. Frank Lott's been a big part of the committee, and many of the committee members are here today. Bill Powers has been with us even way back before he was a city councilman. He was a dedicated civic servant. Charlie Kuhn, Bill Hoy, and we have a number of other folks. Mac Eddington, Dr. Eddington's been a big part of this. Alan Robinson, who used to be our museum director, was a big part of it. So this sort of grew organically, and we wanted to do it with private fundraising, civic commitment from the community to honor Pat. So that gets us to this point, and of course we all mourn Coach's passing a few weeks back, and that I think gave us extra urgency to get this project moving ahead, and we want to get something for the public to remember her, to memorialize her, and to honor her connections to the soil of Montgomery County and Clarksville. One story I came across as I was out fundraising and proselytizing for this project, Pam Whitfield, who's a longtime coach over at Clarksville High and was a contemporary of Pat Summitt's. She now teaches, I think she's late in her career, she's teaching, I think, 9th grade health over at Clarksville High. And as I was talking to her and telling her about the project, she said, it really just breaks my heart that these 9th grade girls who are coming through Clarksville High this year and for the last few years, they don't know anything about Pat Summitt. So that gave me extra incentive. I think we need something to connect this marvelous, accomplished, groundbreaking, iconic, legendary woman to Montgomery County and Clarksville, and we need to tell that story so generation after generation can come and look and learn about the story and hopefully get inspired by her and read some of her books and learn about her. Another person who's really been a key committee member is Teresa Harrington, who's our director of our Convention and Visitors Bureau. She's the woman responsible for bringing these AAU tournaments to town, which are a good thing for the city economically. You know, it's a big event that brings a lot of parents to town, fills up hotel rooms, and puts people in our restaurants. And you know, that tourism money is always a big part of our economic development goals. She's been behind the project all along, and she's managed to find some of the proceeds from Rivers Inspires, which is an annual festival, to help be some of our early seed money. Rivers Inspires has contributed to this day up to $30,000 to keep the project moving forward. So I want to make sure I recognize Teresa and her longstanding commitment to the project. But let me tell you what we've got here. As you can see over here, the basic design of the park, you know, we sort of took inspiration from the stonework that's already here. The great thing about this site is this park is heavily used. There's thousands of people who walk by here already, going to events at Freedom Point. And so there's ample parking, there's accessible restrooms, there's a beautiful site, one of the premier recreational amenities in our community. And so we think this is a wonderful spot, and this will be a great enhancement, should bring some people to town. One thing Teresa told me early on, she said, you know, the little Visitors and Information Center out at Exit 4, people drop in there from all over the country, and they say, where's the Pat Head Summitt stuff? And when I heard that, I did a little inventory, and I think all we had was a road sign out on Highway 12, and I think Pat Summitt's name was misspelled. So it wasn't a great set of amenities to be focused around such a unique and remarkable career and person from our hometown. So that we got busy, and I think we're coming down the home stretch now. We've raised about half of the cost to make that come to life. We did a nationwide request for proposals for the sculptors. We got 8 world-class sculptors as our finalists, and we evaluated them. We chose a guy named Brett Grill, who at the time was at the University of Missouri and now is working in Michigan. He's a Michiganer, and he's done a lot of the sculptures at the Gerald Ford Library. He's done Gerald and Betty Ford. He has things installed in the National Archives, the National Statuary Hall at the U.S. Capitol. So he's world class. He's been great to work with. Frank and I and Dixie Webb and Alan Robinson, as I mentioned, and Brad. We worked as a art selection committee, and Brett has been great. He's a very, very brilliant sculptor and just a good guy to work with. So I think that's the model of the statue that's now in a foundry, ready to be cast. I got to learn a lot about art. I couldn't spell the word maquette when I started this. Now I got one. But going through that, I mean, he's brilliant. I think the statue's it's going to be about 110% of real life size, so it's going to have presence, but it's not going to be. It's going to be comfortable to look at. It's going to tell a story. And what we tried to get was an image of Coach Summitt sending her team out onto the floor in the final moments of the championship game to win that national championship. One thing as I did research and thought a lot about Pat, and I just really remained inspired. The more I learned about her, the more I knew we needed to do this. And if you started thinking about it, you know, her sports legacy alone, qualifies her for, statues and parades and mentions in history books forever. But she came along at a time right after Title IX had been approved, which was a federal act to make sure that there was equality of opportunity for women, and so that meant women's sports were now being focused on. And it's kind of sad that we had to do that by regulation, but Pat was right there at the beginning of that era. And Pat just was a natural feminist. I don't think she was a drum pounding radical feminist in any way. She was a good salt of the earth Montgomery County at the core, but she symbolized the best of the women's movement that unfolded through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I think we'll all agree, with the first woman mayor of Clarksville by my side, that we've made a whole lot of progress, and I think some of that culturally can be attributed to Pat Summitt. So, as I thought about it, you know, she's a cultural icon, and her leadership reshaped the sports landscape, but it also gave women courage and the desire to move forward in a lot of fields, not just sports. So I like to say that her success pulled our whole society and our whole American culture forward. She really bent the curve of history toward justice and equality for women athletes and, by extension, women in our society. You know, if you think about it, she blazed a trail by building this remarkable program that filled the auditorium with 20,000 people and was probably the most popular sporting event in Knoxville for many years, outside of the UT football game. And she had a legion of fans that gathered and grew along with her. Just tell a brief personal story. My wife's Aunt Becky, who's from Cleveland, Tennessee, was one of the early supporters. I went back when there was like a small group of women that sat behind the bench at Thompson Bowling Arena, and cheered Pat on. And Aunt Becky basically led a group of about maybe 10 or 12 women who connected with Pat, and eventually they started coming to Montgomery County to look in on Hazel. And so like every other week, one of these women would make a trek over here from East Tennessee and take Hazel shopping and make sure she was comfortable. And as Hazel got older, it became very important. And this gave Pat a lot of comfort, I think, and gave her. So that's sort of a very tangible human connection that she inspired. You know, she had that kind of potency, power, charisma, whatever. She made people want to just help her family and care about her and hers. So, you know, I think it's fitting, it's right. This is a great project. I'm glad that we're coming down the home stretch. I think this is a great development. I want to thank Mayor McMillan for working with us, working with the committee, helping us find the proper home for our project that we find very dear. I also would like to thank, so far we've raised about $120,000 in cash, and you know, that's no small feat. I learned it took a lot of effort and a lot of marketing effort from Frank Lott and his firm, and just a lot of the committee members, you know, brainstorming. And we still have a ways to go. That's a little bit less than half of what we think we need to raise, but we also have had a lot of outpouring of people saying, hey, where's the project? Can we help? So I think today's event will be sort of a reconvening of the fundraising drive. But I see Keith Miller from Heritage Bank, who was one of our early donors. We had several financial institutions in town that pledged and donated $20,000 to our project. Planters Bank was one of our early supporters. And so we've had, you know, Forterra was Fort Campbell Federal at the time, but they gave us $20,000. And so we've been building, and now we hope to come down the home stretch. But I want to thank the donors. We've had people give us $25. We've had people give us, you know, pledges of $25,000. I'd like to thank Bill Powers and his Wyatt Johnson group of auto dealerships. The Johnson, Canada, and Powers leadership at Wyatt Johnson has pledged $25,000 to the project, and that's very welcome. And Bill, thank you for that. So, one of the things we want to do today is make sure everybody understands that we still need to raise some money, and these are tax deductible donations. You know, there's very little overhead. You know, there's nothing being siphoned off. All the donations go to project costs. You can go to patheadsummitpark.com, and there's a online fulfillment site there where you can use a credit card or PayPal to make a contribution. And then there's also a form there if you want to download it, fill out the information, and mail a check. That information is going to be accompanying the news stories that I hope will arise out of today's event. So, with that, I just want to say again, thank you to the community for the support of the project. I think there is a good sense of urgency that we need to get this done, and if all goes well, we should be looking at a dedication ceremony probably sometime in maybe mid-October, something like that, because that statue is now at the foundry. It's been cast in wax, and that process, that industrial process that's going to deliver that up in a beautiful way, is just about to begin. Brett Grill is, very confident that we can get the statue done completely and delivered and ready to install sometime by the end of September. So we'll start working on that. But meanwhile, tell your friends, tell your neighbors it's a good thing, and ask them if they can see their way, or if you have a business connection with decision makers at your business. Tell them about our project, and if anybody needs any information, I got the same old phone number, 980-8300, and I'll answer all questions. And really appreciate the overwhelming goodwill. And I'll conclude with this. Clarksville is a really remarkable place, Montgomery County. And when you learn that we have two of the giants of women's sports from the 20th century that are from Montgomery County and Clarksville soil, and this is a crucible of these really remarkable sports figures who had other amazing impacts. Wilma Rudolph, the first African-American woman to win a gold medal in the Olympics. Pat Head Summitt still holds the all-time record for women's wins at 1,098. She's won 8 national championships, and she changed the arc of history for opportunity for women. So that's a great legacy, and that's a great identifier for our community. She's known as nationwide as the crucible of these dynamic, high-impact women athletes. And this park will now contain memorials that honor them both. And I think that's a really nice set of bookends for a beautiful park. But now, I would like to offer, we have about 10 of these as fundraising and promotional premiums that we're going to be distributing to our big donors. But for Mayor McMillan's support and devotion to this project and help, I'd like to present this to her. Let me get over front of the plaque over here. And I want that to display proudly in your office. Thanks. Thank you all very much. I guess it's appropriate to ask for any questions, if there is any, from either the crowd or from the press, or we can just wait and do that.
That's right. Well, let me just say,
Okay.
I just want to make one final. Wow, this is really exciting. I mean, I think I'm going to have a hard time not wanting to take this home, but to leave it in City Hall where it belongs and should be, because Pat, I think, not only meant so much to Clarksville and to Montgomery County and to everywhere across this country, but she meant a lot to me personally, and I think that Richard was correct in that she inspired women to move forward and achieve greatness no matter what the odds, no matter what the cost, just the true perseverance and dedication to a cause that Pat showed all of us, I think reflects in so much that she did. And one thing that I think that Richard didn't mention that I think is really important, because I know it was the thing that Pat was most proud of, because she used to remind me about it all the time, that even though she had 8 national championships, even though she had more wins than any coach, man or woman, in Division I basketball, she also had 100% graduation rate for every athlete that played for her and completed their eligibility. And that was something that she kept so dear to her, and she bragged about it every time she had the opportunity, because she knew that not just basketball, but education was the true key to success for women and men later in life, and that's what she was so proud of. And I just want to leave you with one quick story. I know Richard told a story, and I have one to tell too. about Pat, but I will say that if you notice in that picture of Tommy Head and myself and my children and Pat, you'll notice that my daughter, who's Pat is holding, has a sucker in her hand and was licking on a sucker. And before we took the picture, Pat said, well, I'll just pick up Katie and hold her. And she leaned over and said to Katie, you know, you might want to put that sucker down before we have our pictures taken. It might not make a good picture. And my daughter looked at Pat Summitt in the face and said, well, that might be true, but I'm not finished with this sucker yet, so I think I'll keep it. And I was mortified and horrified at the fact that my daughter had now talked back to Pat Head Summitt at this wonderful ceremony, and I began to apologize profusely to Pat for her behavior, and Pat looked at me and she said, Kim, I just want you to know that that little girl, if she grows up to be tall enough, she can play for me because she's got spunk. And that's what I like in young ladies. And that made me so proud. And so that's just a quick story about Pat, and I'm sure everyone else has a lot of stories. And I'm excited about getting this project finished so we can all have the opportunity to visit and reflect upon her great life. So thank you all for coming today. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them as we move forward. I have copies of a press release, which I will hand out to all the members of the media that are here, and I will acknowledge that I know Jennifer Rawls, our communications director, will be emailing that out to all of the media sources, so if you'd rather wait till you get a digital copy as opposed to taking a hard copy, that would be fine also. But thank you all for coming today, and I hope to see all of you back and more when we officially cut the ribbon on the statue that I know we're now going to get placed right here. Thank you.
One addition, Bill Hoy with then Legends Bank was a member of our committee, and Bill delivered a nice sum from Legends Bank, who also is one of our financial contributors from that sector. So I've admitted that. I want to make sure you got to take inventory of these things.
That's right.
But again, tell your friends and neighbors. This will be online at the Leaf Chronicle. We'll host. I believe I can still get a little bit of pull down there to get this, something that'll stay on the website, so you can refer people to that if you want to encourage them to donate to the cause. Thank you all very much.
This video is brought to you by Clarksville Online.